lot of my friends that you're going to see today are folks that I met when I was working for the Alabama National Guard in one form or fashion. So the first one that I want to introduce to you today is my friend Heath McNaughton. Heath will tell you a little bit about himself here in just a second, but Heath is a recent retiree from the Alabama Air National Guard. And he is one of the smartest guys I know. Anybody ever deal with Lean Six Sigma and Lean? Heath is a lean machine. You'll see it when you see him too. He's a hippie now too. His hair is growing, it's touching his ears. So it's really strange for me to see. But please welcome Heath McNaughton, and he's going to talk about his transition. Heath McNaughton, go ahead. Welcome to the audience.
Yeah, but it is different. About 6 weeks ago, I was Lieutenant Colonel Heath McNaughton, and living a very different life. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, you just hand me that.
You can use this one.
So like I said, about 6 weeks ago, I was in the Alabama National Guard. I was there for 23 years. The slides we do here,
Oh, look, all the people in charge left. Go ahead, I'll work it.
So 23 years with the Alabama National Guard, and then left, and now that I'm working with Applied Technology Academy, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Program Management. So, there you go. So you do face some issues, whether you were active duty or National Guard, and we'll talk in a minute about the differences there. But it's little things that you don't even realize. Like, do I have to go get a haircut every 2 weeks, or can I let my hair touch my ears? You actually have these thoughts because you've been in such a structured environment. And some of the issues that I went through in the past 6 weeks was something so simple as not having clothes. You know, you wear your uniform every day. You're in this structured environment all the time. And it hits you. I've got to go buy new clothes. You know, I've got to have a different life here. Also, too, when you get into that civilian environment, the communication style is extremely different. You got to remember that in the military, we've all been trained in similar ways. We've had similar experiences, and we tend to communicate in very similar fashions. You get out into the civilian world in those work environments, and it's much different. There's a lot more variation in the experiences and the way people communicate, because there's just not as much structure. But what I was able to do is take those issues and see them as opportunities. And what the point I'm making here is the transition for a military member, a lot of that is up to them. There is some responsibility for the military member, just like the general was saying. He had the opportunity to go to the courses, you know, but he kept putting them off, and it might have been better had he gone, right? A lot of that is up to us to take control of that situation and accept that things are going to be different, and give yourself time to make that transition, because some of the things that get drilled into you in basic training and all the courses that you go to over the period of career, they're never going to leave you. You're going to have that as part of your personality, whether your spouse likes it or not. It's going to be there probably till the day you die, right? But we do need to be able to flex. So there's not as much structure, but what I found is that in a lot of times when there were new ideas or something that you wanted to go try, in that non-military environment, you can go do that. You have the freedom to do that, because in the military, we plan a lot. We have to. We plan for every single contingency. We can't just go out there and try something, because it could be devastating. So I got to adjust to different communication styles, and I got to pick out my own clothes. So I'm kind of like that. Hopefully, I'm doing a good job of doing that. So some of my issues became opportunities, and I viewed them differently. And I also want to mention the RAID program that ADRS does, which is a wonderful program. I had some back issues, and I got a chair, I got a Barrett desk, and I was able to take that with me from my military environment into my civilian environment. And it helps to keep me, you know, going throughout the day. It's going to eventually help me work longer and stay retained in my current work. Okay, so military training encourages the member to seek out structure. So when you're looking to hire a military member, they're going to bring so much to the table. They're going to bring, the ability to make a decision, all those core values that they're going to bring to your organization. But we kind of need to understand their background. They get a great deal of training, all right? And we train before we do, right? We train, then we go do. We also like to seek out direction from our superior officers. That may, in that private sector environment, that may be the boss or whoever it may be. We like to come to that person and make sure that, are we going to do this right? Because we don't want to just go do things, right? So we create habits through repetition. We have strict standards that we've had to learn to live with. And we've had to assimilate into that military culture. So, and the individualism is not necessarily prioritized in that environment, okay? So the variation is also lower. Our pay, our benefits, our promotions, they're all kind of structured. They just kind of happen. As long as you don't do things you shouldn't do, they're going to kind of happen, right? But in civilian life, that's very, very different, okay? There's not a lot of dedicated training at times. You train on the job most of the time. The supervisor sometimes maybe not providing a lot of direction. And that changing environment doesn't always allow for us to do it over and over and over again until we get it perfect, right? And standards may be vague. Individualism is much greater, and the higher level of variation in the civilian workforce. So that military member is going to go through not only the transition of leaving the military, but once they land into a civilian job, it's going to be different. Now, you're going to get a lot of good things out of that person, but you may want to help them out a little bit by recognizing the skills. Sometimes in the private sector, it's not recognized as much as it is in the military. So I have all these skills in the military, come to the private sector, and I say, okay, I was a Charlie Bravo 43 or whatever the case may be. They don't know what you're talking about, right? They have no clue. But for that military person, that's all they had to say. And everybody went, we know exactly what you did. We know exactly what you did, right? They can say, well, I was on Operation XYZ. They know exactly what you did. In the private sector, they have no clue what you're talking about. So a lot of times, because they don't, it can make that military member feel a little bit underappreciated. Because now they feel like they have to explain themselves and whatever, and they should. But take the time to acknowledge that that military person may have done some amazing things in their career, their former life. And just take the time to let them get that out a little bit. And in the process, you'll be able to understand, oh, that skill relates to this. You can work on this project because you did that. But it's a shared load. The military member is going to have to take the time to explain it, and the civilian folks are going to have to take time to listen. Okay? And easing that transition, again, it goes back to the military member. We have to take responsibility for our own transition, right? All right? And that can take some time. We need to understand they're going through an adjustment and what all they accomplished. And the Skill Bridge program is a highly effective program. You can look into that about how somebody that's in the military can take that time right before they get out to go and work kind of on-the-job training, and it can be very, very effective. So what helped me is I had to be open to a new experience. So, being open and understanding that I'm going to have, some transition, there is key. Having supportive people around you, and then prepare yourself. You got to prepare yourself before you get out. I had a degree that helped out. I had industry certifications that helped out. And then I also was able, in my job, I had a little bit of a unique job with the National Guard. I worked with strategic partnerships, so I work with the private sector almost on a daily basis, or other federal agencies, state agencies. So I kind of had an idea of what it was like out there. That helped me out. So, but not everybody has that opportunity, but I encourage, military members or civilians to reach out to these people and kind of give them some idea of what it's like in that different environment. And then being realistic about your transition. So, now then, the company that I work for, here's the commercial, so get ready. What we do is we provide industry certification training. So, boot camps, mainly in IT and project management. So what this can do for a military member, and we train tons of military members, whether it's the ones that are currently serving or contractors. There's 8570 requirement for Security Plus that you have to be able to touch some of these systems. So we do a lot of that training, but we also do a lot of training for people that are transitioning. So I have these skills, right? The private sector may not really understand a lot of the stuff I'm doing. One way to make them understand is go get a certification that's recognized in the private sector. Whether that's project management or IT, we help them get those certifications so that they can start their new career and be credentialed. So that's what we offer. We're able to take those Army Ignited and Air Force School funding, and we assist these folks on a daily basis. And we're out of Florida, but I'm an Alabama person, and we're currently trying to grow our operations in Alabama. And we're here to serve, corporations, individuals, contractors, to get folks ready to step out, or the current people that are already working, to help them to upskill and get the certifications that they need. So, with that, any questions? Okay.
So you said you're growing into Alabama. Where exactly are you?
Right, we're starting out, we have a physical location at the lab in Dexter in Montgomery, and we're kind of going from there. That's going to be kind of our jumping off point. We provide most of our training live online, so we can train all over the globe. We do a lot of things where we will go to the individual. We just got through doing courses in Hawaii, we live in New Jersey, just all over, but we were doing live online before COVID, so these classes are great formats to be able to do that. So that's the beauty, you can do it anywhere. Or you can do it in person, and hopefully at some point in time we'll be able to get back to that. So.
Now, do you have like a special program that targets veterans coming out, or?
What we do, we are actually working right now really closely with individuals that are bringing SkillBridge members on, because there's a great model there. Okay, let's say there's a company and they want to bring on a SkillBridge service member as they transition out of their career. While they're doing their OJT and making that transition, that's a perfect time for them to go ahead and get some certifications while they're at it. So they can have that experience. Plus on their resume now, they have a PMP, or they have their Security Plus, or their CCNA, or whatever the case, whatever they're needing for whatever work they're going to be doing. It just works really well in that time period while they have time to do those type of things. And then they come out, not only are they trained, but they're certified to touch whatever project or system that they're about to work on. So it's really good on their resume, because it also, like I said, it helps the civilian and hiring authorities to know what they do. Okay? So real quick, I'm going to touch on one thing before we stop. The differences between Guard and Air Force and all of those things. So in the National Guard, you got your folks that are your drill status, what we call drill status. They might have a job at Coke Industries, but they serve once a month and twice a year. It's way more than that. So yeah, so you deploy and you serve your country. But they have jobs in the private sector. Then you have the folks in the National Guard that are full-time. They're just like an active duty person. This is what they do every day, all right? And then, of course, your Air Force, your Army, your Marines. Military is kind of military, but each of those, whether it's Guard or Air Force or whatever, has a little bit of a different flavor to it. It really does. That culture is going to be a little bit different. So as they come out, they're going to have their little nuances, and they're going to affect their transition and affect, their growth in a different career. But keep in mind, last thing I'm saying, the majority of military members, the vast majority that I have met, are amazing people, because they have commitment, they have values, they have obviously, if they've been in the military for a while, have had to toe the line on some standards, right? And they tend to have a moral compass. And that's the stuff that you can't train, right? So when they get to your organization, you can teach them all kinds of things. Plus, they're used to learning something new about every 6 months, right? You can teach them, but one of the things that it's hard to find is what they have in heart. So, good on those people.